And what are the accomplishments over the last 4 years? Can you name any? I can't.
We have 146 specific accomplishments that the two presidents achieved over 21 policy areas. The fact is, the numbers show Joe Biden got a lot more done. He was just more successful.
As his master, Donald Trump, faces mounting challenges in the form of legal trials, bad polling, and abortion backlash, an increasingly nervous Sean Hannity tried to lie to his viewers, suggesting that President Biden has gotten nothing accomplished in his 4 years, which is ironic because a group of journalists just got together and put together a very comprehensive review of the Biden administration's record versus the Trump administration's record. And bad news for Hannity, it ain't even close. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, so we have a couple of clips to play of Sean Hannity here, but the bulk of this is going to be dedicated to a lie that he tried to sell. Well, two lies. I guess the two clips I'm going to play are both two lies from Sean Hannity, but this one's the big one and the more interesting one to me, which is that Sean Hannity, as Donald Trump faces, again, this one set of bad news after another, is trying to lie to his viewers, who are probably sympathetic to the lie, and suggest that President Biden has gotten nothing accomplished. So we're going to play the clip, and then we're going to get into the rebuttal, which is overwhelming.
Is there anybody in this audience, all of you watching, do you think that man is strong enough, is cognitively alert enough to be the president of this great country? Do you really believe that? And what are the accomplishments over the last 4 years? Can you name any? I can't.
Well, that means that either Sean Hannity is a liar or he is cognitively impaired. Again, an irony, right? Because the fact of the matter is that if you review the records of Donald Trump when he was president or President Biden, take no value judgments, none. You're not talking about, is the policy good or bad? Is the accomplishment good or bad? Is it just an accomplishment? Is it something that they got done using their executive and legislative powers that they intended to get done? If you evaluate it that way, President Biden has been vastly more successful than Donald Trump, and it's not close. And the editor-in-chief of Washington Monthly recruited a number, I think it was a dozen or more journalists, to review carefully for a lengthy period of time the records of the Trump administration and the Biden administration. And they came up with, again, a comprehensive review that we're going to look at. But here he was on CNN talking about this review with Jake Tapper.
For being here. So this is very interesting how you did this. You came up with a definitive list between Trump and Biden just in terms of what they accomplished. Who advanced their agenda more based on certain issues? You have Trump with the most ground when it came to taxes and courts and social issues. You say they tied when it comes to achievement on immigration, veterans, work and family, crime, and cannabis. And then the Biden success list is legislating, trade, and guns, just to name a few. That's a long list over there. What's really interesting about this piece is just it's not necessarily judging the merits of what they did on taxes, but just looking at how successful were they able to be. What's the biggest takeaway you want to share with readers and viewers and voters?
Well, I think people should read the list for themselves. We have 146 specific accomplishments that the two presidents achieved over 21 policy areas. You gave some of the highlights, and they should read it and decide for themselves. But the main takeaway is both presidents got a lot done. The fact is, the numbers show Joe Biden got a lot more done. He was just more successful. And that doesn't mean getting more done the way you would want or I would want. We did this study based on what the president's administrations themselves said they got done.
Yeah.
And we dug into their claims. We threw out the dubious ones and the small ones. And then we described them. We fact-checked them. And when you add them all up, Donald Trump has his accomplishments. Joe Biden has more.
So we'll play some more. But again, I just want to break this down. This is important because I'm sure some enlightened centrists, when they hear about this list or when they hear the top line that Biden just got a lot more done than Trump, they're going to be like, well, that's because what Trump got done was stuff that these liberal, socialist, communist journalists disagreed with, right? And if you actually took the raw accomplishments as they are, Trump is neck and neck or even better. It's just not true. They took no value proposition of the Trump administration's accomplishments or the Biden administration's accomplishments. Like, again, Trump cut taxes for the rich. I think that's a bad policy accomplishment. I think that's terrible. I would have rather that he not accomplish that, but he got it done. So that is a policy accomplishment, whether we like it or not, and it goes on the list. Biden didn't get that done. As a matter of fact, I believe he said, and I believe the list shows, that in the area of taxes, they conclude that Trump accomplished more on the matter of taxes than Biden. So again, just want to make it very clear, this is not a particularly biased list because it doesn't make a value proposition of the accomplishments themselves. It's just, did they want to do it? Did they get it done? Check. Did they want to do it? They didn't get it done? Then they don't get credit.
Yeah. Let's look closely at legislation, and this might be a key as to why ultimately in this examination Biden accomplished more. You say Biden wins the category of legislating, largely in part because he took bipartisanship seriously and Trump did not. Explain what you mean.
So Joe Biden, as we all know, is a veteran lawmaker who was patiently willing to work with leaders of the other party in Congress.
Perhaps too much so for some progressives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But as a result, he signed many, many major historic bills. Donald Trump, amateur, had never served in public life, and famously didn't get along with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. And his inability to cut deals hurt him on his achievements. He's simply signed fewer bills. You know, he came to office with about 10 major bills he wanted to sign. Infrastructure, we remember, was one of them. He didn't get them done. He got a few done. He got a big tax bill done, and that's a category that he wins in our ranking, in our index, presidential accomplishment index. But you know, that is just one where he failed compared to Joe Biden.
Yeah, again, great example. So this is a point that I've been trying to consistently make. I know my buddy Luke Beasley, my buddy Destiny as well, have been trying to make that in their political commentary, which is, even though Donald Trump, tries to style himself as the ultimate deal maker and negotiator, we actually seen very little evidence of that. Even when his party had control of both chambers of Congress, he failed to get certain things done. He failed to build his wall. He failed to repeal and replace Obamacare. Meanwhile, when President Biden took office with razor-thin majorities, he just got a lot more bang for his buck, and was even able to secure a number of bipartisan wins, like the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which is, the biggest piece of gun control legislation in 30 years, et cetera and so forth. So he got quite a bit done, the PACT Act and so on and so forth. It just goes to show that Biden is simply the better negotiator in politics. Biden is the better legislator. Biden is the better executive. And there's no contest. We're going to look into some of the writings of this comprehensive review, but just want to drive that point home. And infrastructure, to me, is a great point. So, Trump talked about wanting to pass comprehensive infrastructure legislation, and he couldn't get it done in 4 years. When he had the majorities in Congress, when he didn't have the majorities in Congress, it didn't matter. He failed. Biden got it done in less than 1 year, and that's a commonality that they had. They both wanted to get it done. Trump failed. Biden succeeded. Even if you disagree with the bill, Biden is simply better.
So based on all this analysis, and I guess based on what they're saying out there, what they want to accomplish in a second term, if Trump wins a second presidency, what do you think that might look like?
Well, looking at what they did in the past gives you a sense of what they're going to do in the future. One of the things Donald Trump says in private, in his fundraisers, because the big money likes to hear it, is he is more proud of his regulatory reform than he is even of his tax cuts. And he had a huge attempt to deregulate the government. He wasn't that successful. 70% of the cases that got brought before the courts, his deregulation, he lost, versus 30% for the average presidency. So he didn't regulate as much as Joe Biden, but the measure is, was he a good deregulator? Not so much. Whereas Joe Biden regulated a lot, but that was what he meant to do. He wanted.
So there you go. Again, great, counterposition there, great juxtaposition. So Biden is a better regulator than Trump is a deregulator. And again, just a great point to illustrate how they approach this. So I want to look at some of the writing here. So if you go to the Washington Monthly's kind of introduction, Paul Glastris writes an intro. For most voters, something like the opposite is true. Their feelings don't care about the facts. He's referencing, of course, Ben Shapiro's "Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings" gang. But they said that they wanted to evaluate the record. We asked 10 journalists to investigate both presidents' record in a specific realm, the courts, national security, antitrust, etc., and report on who got more of their respective agendas done. There is a 21 policy index, from national security all the way down to cannabis. And again, they have like the little breakdown. So, for example, you click on taxation. Trump significantly lowered the top corporate tax rate, whereas Biden imposed a minimum corporate tax rate. Regulation. He eased financial regulations on small and mid-sized banks, embarked on anti-regulation campaign. Biden modernized the government's regulatory review, instituted government TikTok ban, got ticket sites to dump junk fees, restored restrictions on payday lenders. The courts, I imagine Trump wins, appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, right? Biden's only appointed 1, stacked the lower federal judiciary. Biden is on track to do the same, or to at least counter it successfully. But Trump getting 3 Supreme Court justices, whereas Biden's only gotten 1. Trump wins on the matter of the court, even though I would obviously argue that Trump's accomplishments were terrible in that respect. But in the end, when it just comes down to it, Trump wins on taxes, courts, and social issues. They tie on 5 others, but Biden enjoys a colossal advantage with respect to everything else. And if you want to dig into the Washington Monthly's review, again, they have various journalists actually break it down even further with an op-ed going into deeper details if you don't just want the top line notes. So now let's turn back to Sean Hannity. Having successfully refuted the fact that, or the idea, the lie that President Biden has gotten nothing done, when in fact he's gotten considerably more done of his agenda than Donald Trump ever did. Sean Hannity in that same episode also told a different sort of lie, which again, I think it's really important to push back on. We're going to play the clip and then play the refutation.
And in 201 days, if Biden wins re-election, God help us, because this weaponized Department of Justice, it will never recover. Say bye-bye to the rule of law in America, because it will fold like a house of cards.
Okay, so Sean Hannity believes that the Justice Department has been weaponized under Joe Biden. But I want to remind, I will never stop playing this clip because it's so important, because so many of us have forgotten about it. When Sean Hannity's master, Donald Trump, was the sitting United States president in 2020, he tried overtly, publicly, on Sean Hannity's network to get his attorney general, Bill Barr, to indict Joe Biden, his political rival, and Donald Trump, a former president. It's still worth playing this clip.
Unless Bill Barr indicts these people for crimes, the greatest political crime in the history of our country, then we're going to get little satisfaction unless I win, and we'll just have to go, because I won't forget it. But these people should be indicted. This was the greatest political crime in the history of our country, and that includes Obama, and it includes Biden.
These people shouldn't be indicted. That includes Obama, and that includes Biden. So Donald Trump was caught red-handed trying to do overtly the very thing that Hannity claims, but has no proof of, is being done to Trump by Biden. There is no audio, there is no video of Joe Biden commanding the prosecution of Donald Trump, period. What Donald Trump attempted to do was infinitely more corrupt and bad faith and despicable and an overt display of weaponization than anything coming out of the Biden administration. But Sean Hannity, like Megyn Kelly, like Piers Morgan, they don't care about that. It's okay when Donald Trump campaigns on locking up and jailing his political opponents, as he did in 2016, 2020, 2024. When he was a candidate, when he was a sitting president, it doesn't matter. Ethics and rules and norms, those don't matter to Donald Trump. They're only things for lesser people, like we liberals or we progressives or we Democrats. So what Sean Hannity's doing here is pure projection. The facts show he and his side are just objectively worse when it comes to trying to weaponize the legal system against their opponents. Well, why is Donald Trump being prosecuted? Well, Donald Trump committed crimes. We actually have credible evidence that Donald Trump committed crimes, unlike when Donald Trump tries to go after Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and others. So that's probably the meaningful difference between the two. Anyway, you can just see Hannity's nervous about what's going on with Donald Trump, the court cases, the abortion backlash, the bad polling. So he's trying to spin lies to compensate for the weakness on the facts. But again, the facts show President Biden is a vastly more accomplished executive and legislator and leader politically than Donald Trump. And Donald Trump actually tried to weaponize his Justice Department against his political opponent overtly and publicly. And there is no evidence that Joe Biden has done the same. Let me know what you think in the comments.